Good morning, everyone. Well, I'm recording this on the 4th. I didn't really do a 4th of July message. I forget what day it is sometimes. But I'm recording this on the 4th, so I hope you have a good holiday this time. The fireworks and all the stuff. I would normally do a Francis Scott Key message, because when he wrote the Star Spangled Banner, he was on a British flagship. And he got to watch the whole thing, the whole battle. The battle that the British lost because they couldn't take out a fort that had been reinforced. In any case, I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm going to do a follow-up on my telling you to prep message that I did. I had 2 or 3 messages that called me out on stuff, and I didn't like the way they talked, so I deleted them. But the theme was the same. We're not prepping to get through the tribulation. We're prepping to survive up to it. We're being snatched away for a reason. The rapture, it's pre-trib. We're being snatched away for a reason because it's not going to be good times. It's already bad enough that if you were prepping when I first told you to prep, you'd be eating cheaper than if you just go to the market and buy food. So one more time, I'm going to give you some verses here in a little bit, but one more time. Buy what you normally eat, buy extra, especially if it's on sale. Put the latest stuff you've got at the back, so the oldest stuff will be at the front, and you pull from that. So you should be pulling from food that you paid a lot less than what you're paying for today, because the price is just getting crazy. It's getting so expensive, and this is what I'm going to talk about in a bit, that businesses are closing. Food places are closing. If not filing bankruptcy and completely closing, they're closing down many of their stores. There's a variety of reasons, but it's basically a sign of the times. All right, so this is what I'm telling you to do. This is out of Matthew 24:10. Matthew 24 has the Olivet Discourse when they asked him, what are the sign of the times going to be? And he starts off with, don't be deceived. Well, he eventually does get into what it's going to be like. 24:10, at that time many will fall away and will betray and hate one another. Look around. And many false prophets will arise and mislead many. Look around. Because of the multiplication of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. Look around. But the one who perseveres to the end will be saved. Now, we're not talking about salvation itself, because salvation is a one-time thing that you get when you accept Christ. I think the being saved will be raptured, will be pulled out at the end. Now, there's also going to be a rapture at the very end for those that do survive the tribulation. And there will be a remnant of people that are alive that will go into the millennium. In verse 14, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So we're doing what we can now. Then when they go into the tribulation, they're going to turn the focus back on the Jews, and they're going to have their 2 witnesses and 144,000 to go up against the Antichrist. There will be an angel going around the world spreading the gospel. There will be no questions. No one will be able to get to the end and say they didn't know. Okay, now, I've got a partial list here. One of the problems of today is the social media sites don't want you to know a lot of this. So if somebody posts something important, unless it's the libs doing something for some reason, they don't let it stay up very long, or you can't find it. I know that daily on my video. They do their best to keep you from finding it. So thank you for being here. Businesses are closing right and left. A lot of major problems, major companies that you're used to are closing. Macy's has filed for Chapter 11. Cracker Barrel, Chapter 11. There's a number of places that are filing, but we're going to go down the list here. But restaurants, which are borderline, if you ask these billionaires, what would you invest in if you were just getting started? One of the lists of not to invest in are restaurants, because they're marginal. They don't make a lot of profit, and you screw up on one weekend, and you could basically hurt your profits the whole year. It's very volatile. You serve a bunch of food and people get sick because you didn't do your job right. That can be a problem. Somebody else doesn't do their job right down the food chain, providing you with what you think is good food. You can go out of business real quick. So, I think the biggest thing that's killing it is the liberals' minimum wage. People don't understand what the minimum wage is for. The minimum wage is not so that the person making the lowest wage can go out and buy a new car, a phone, and a house. That's not the minimum wage reason. The minimum wage is there is for entry-level, non-skilled people to have a way to make money. It's not going to be as much as an engineer or an electrician. It's not meant to be. It's not supposed to cost a lot of money. Your $20 bill at McDonald's for lunch is because they're paying their help more than they should. You say, well, people can't make a living at that level. They're not supposed to make a living. Most of the people making the minimum wage of $10 an hour, they're at home. They're living at home, and this is their first job. They're not skilled. They don't know what they're doing. You don't want to pay them that much money. But now you get California's getting ready to go to a $25 an hour minimum wage. McDonald's says they're probably going to be leaving. They're looking at the options now, leaving California. All these big fast food restaurants are looking at their prices, and they can't compete. They can't serve you something that you're going to want to pay that much money for. I mean, the original McDonald's hamburger meal, Happy Meal, was not Happy Meal, but the 2 all-beef patty special, sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, the Big Mac, 35 cents. Okay. So again, a lot of companies are moving out of California. But they're saying, how can you possibly have this kind of a mindset that you're driving businesses away? Don't you understand that what you're doing is wrong? Actually, the answer is yes. They fully understand what they're doing. It's deliberate. It's destruction of the United States, and it's deliberate. The enemy has been infiltrating our country for years. It's called the deep state, and it goes down to basically every government official. Anybody who's getting paid by the government has a good possibility of being in on this scam to overthrow the country. I'm not saying every worker, but if you're one of the rare people who aren't trying to destroy the country, you're on a hit list. and they're waiting for you to retire or die or go find another job. Okay, so this is some of the stores that are closing down. Boston Market is also in Chapter 11. I don't think they're going to come back. Denny's, Red Lobster. Red Lobster tried that last-ditch effort, the Hail Mary, of all the shrimp you can eat. And people were going there and eating all the shrimp they could eat. And it was a negative win for them. Okay, so Applebees. Now, when the video that I watched was a recent one, within the last month or two, and these numbers are all up. I couldn't find it when I went back to look for it to get all the numbers down. I found an earlier version, probably from February. So these numbers are low. Believe me, it's at least half of what the originals were. But I couldn't find the video. It just won't let us see it. I should have. Some of the problems are is like Facebook, who doesn't want you to have access to this information, won't give you a link to the original video. It's a YouTube video, but they won't let you have the link to it. So you can't go find it and have it bookmarked. Applebee's is closing 40 locations this year. Main stores. IHOP is closing 35 locations. Outback Steakhouse, 20 locations. Again, double or quadruple these numbers depending on the store. Red Lobster, 20 locations. Olive Garden is closing 15 locations. Red Robin, 10 locations. Friendly's, over 100 locations. Now, I'm not familiar with that. We don't have one down here because they're filing for bankruptcy. Ruby Tuesdays is closing over 100 locations because they're filing for bankruptcy. Pretty soon, you're not going to be able to eat out because one is going to be too expensive and there aren't going to be as many stores. I told you that I just ordered food. I didn't go out to eat, but I ordered food delivered from Grubhub because I had a coupon. And I had their Flo's filet. Normally it's an average, better than average steak, I should say. Better than you're going to get at home. And it's a pretty good place to eat if you want to go out. But this thing was like leather. Tough. If you can cut with a butter knife your steak, it's the right texture. I had to have a very sharp steak knife to cut mine. Steak knives were invented for people who eat steak at home and cook them on the barbecue, because you're not going to buy the best quality meat unless you can figure out how to buy from the farmer. This is why you need to prep. They're shutting down food. They're buying up food manufacturing. They're buying up property. Millions of acres of property in the United States that would normally produce food. They're going to starve us to death. The people that want to rule the world want two classes of people. I've covered this before. The rich and the poor. And the poor are servants to the rich, with the gap so big that the poor can never get up to that level. No middle class. The middle class have the option of moving up to the rich. You get lucky, you work hard, whatever your options are. The middle class could get rich, and they have. But the wealthy of this world have gone from, I don't know the number, so I'm making this up. They've gone from, 20 billion to 400 billion. in the last 4 years. I'm not making that number up. I remembered it. George Soros mentioned that. So they've become a lot richer. Where are my geese? I haven't seen my geese in 2 days. I don't know where they went. So the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. In spite of what the government says, the government lies now. Almost entirely everything they say is a lie. Or it's misleading, one or the other. If they can figure out how to say the truth but mislead it, then they can claim they said the truth. They can't do that all the time, so they just lie. And the media backs them up. The media is part of this deep state. It's part of the one world order. We're not quite to the biblical day's wage for a loaf of bread, but $3 to $4 for a loaf of bread. I mean, I don't eat a lot of bread, but I've been feeding my geese. And I give them bread. And I'm not giving them Wonder Bread, which is flavored cardboard. If you're eating white bread, you're not getting nutrients. You may not be getting enough nowadays, but it used to be wheat bread. A good wheat bread would have enough nutrients in it. If you're buying at the market, with the exception of prepping, because you've got to buy long-term food, you should stay in the outside of the aisles. You go down the aisles, it's not the healthiest food. But to stay alive, you may have to buy cans of things, okay? I buy cans of food that I like to eat, or can eat, which is often the case in my time now. And I store it. And since some of this food, since we don't know how much to have, we're going to have more than we need. Some of it's going to get left behind. One of the neighbors going by in their mini cart. Not a golf cart, but it's close. A lot of these permanent big rig travelers have some kind of a vehicle to get around in, because they park for a while and they can tool around without having to take out the big car. We have to survive all the way until the rapture. And right now, the time's not good. And it's nowhere near as bad as it's going to get. We've got things coming up in the next few months. Like I said before in one of my videos, they talked about last month not investing. I'd say this month, be careful. Because a lot of businesses, as we've just seen, are shutting down stores. How many stores can you think of now that don't exist anymore? Can you go eat at Woolworths anymore? Used to be a good lunch. Can't eat there. A lot of places. Sometimes it's just bad investments, I agree. But those are the exceptions. To have this many, and the list is actually longer in the newer video. I mean, I think I've only got 8 on this list. It's like 20. And instead of closing 20 stores, they're closing 80 to 100 stores. I think Bed Bath & Beyond just recently came out with a notice saying that if you people don't stop stealing our merchandise, we're going to have to close our doors. You've seen where these mobs show up. Break in the door, go in, steal them blind inside, and nobody does anything. police don't show up until they're long gone. The world that we're in now is the worst I've ever seen it. And it's not there yet. They're still working on it. So this is why you need to stay physically in shape, mentally in shape, spiritually in shape. Keep all your activity geared towards you surviving. Because we have a message to get out. That's the reason you need to prep. We're not going to go through the tribulation. But we're going right up to the edge. And we're so close to the edge right now, I'm just watching and trying to figure out which one. You can't figure which domino is going to fall. Economically, we're on the cusp right now of collapsing. We're on the cusp of World War III. They keep warning us about new diseases. It wouldn't take much to bring another disease out. This time they'd make sure it was truly deadly. No, the big C, it was deadly. And people died from it. But a lot of people died because of the treatment. They had permanent damage from the respirators. That if they hadn't used the respirators, they'd have been better off. See, whenever you get something for the first time, they experiment. They're claiming a lot of the drugs now have caused long-term problems. But that's the way it was with the flu shot. The flu shot was problematic. Some people didn't take it. And Big C and the flu were pretty much about the same as far as the people that were in danger were the weak immune systems, physically weak. But believe me, the next one that comes will be deadly. When the seals are opened, 1/4 of the world population will die. Okay, it's enough of that talking. Take care of yourself. I have my Bruce Lee shirt on because I am a black belt. And diversify yourself. That's why I'm wearing this today. He said that if you're going to be a martial art expert, you don't want to fight. Fighting's the last choice you have. But if you have to fight, it would be helpful if you knew more than one discipline. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. If I run up against somebody else who's a black belt in Taekwondo, we're going to know what each other's going to do. And then it's just a matter of who's in better shape. Well, I'm 70. I'm not going to beat somebody who's 25. But if I knew multiple disciplines, I'd have a better chance because I could catch them off guard. And that's what Bruce Lee's point was. If you're going to defend yourself, have multiple paths because you don't know what the other person's going to know until you meet them. So, in surviving this, have multiple options. Because you don't know what you're going to encounter. Don't look for fights. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you have to defend yourself, and if you've got food stores and your neighbors don't be telling them about them unless they're so good friends that you'd want to share with them. And be prepared to share with them because more than likely, unless they're Christians like you and preparing, they're not going to be ready. There's a Twilight Zone episode where two families lived in the suburbs in this, cookie-cutter house. They lived side by side. This was during the 60s, the last World War nuke scare that we had. And one guy built a bomb shelter, and the neighbor didn't. And when they had a false alarm, they didn't know it was a false alarm. The alarms went off. Yesterday, the alarms went off. But they test the alarms on Wednesday. These just seemed to drag on a little longer. I grabbed my phone and I was on social media looking to see if anything was going on. But the neighbor basically goes and gets every piece of tool he can and breaks the door down. Now, the family that built the bomb shelter, if a bomb goes off, is going to die, along with the one who tried to get in with them. And that was that in the 60s, the Twilight Zone? It's black and white. Must be. Rod Serling wrote many, if not, well, not all, but many of the episodes. Visionary. Okay, so we're prepping to stay alive according to Matthew. So we can keep the word going. That's why we're prepping. And a side benefit can be that if you've got relatives that aren't going to be in the rapture because they refuse to accept, they have food to keep them alive while things get worse, in hopes that they will go, oh my God, maybe they were right, and accept Jesus. So if you've got food, it'll keep them alive for that. Be sure to leave your Bible and tracts out where they can find them. It's fixing to get real, folks. Soon. The Democrats know they can't masquerade Biden as a president much longer. They're going to pull something. I've been saying it for a long time. My sneaky suspicion is all these people that have come into this country are going to be armed by our government to overthrow it. Be ready for another 9/11 someplace. It doesn't have to be a plane. They could have a truck. Remember the Oklahoma bombing? You can take 50 trucks and put them in front of major buildings. This is a 4th of July weekend. There's going to be gatherings this weekend. I pray nothing happens, but it's possible. Be careful. Know your surroundings and have an escape plan. Keep looking up, though, because we're about to get out of here. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless. One lonely fisherman out there.